look, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, we'll do this form for you. You just send me over the link, etc. And I always found that quite challenging. Whereas I think I already touched on it, but with the UAE, it's definitely more forward thinking. So businesses here, business owners, even like people on the ground, they want to try new things. They want to do new things. And generally speaking, if they say they're going to do it, they do it. So the market between the three is quite different. And actually, even the way that you manage people is quite different. So what I've realized, I guess, in the experience that I've had in the three different jurisdictions is that, and I'm kind of thinking as I'm talking now, but leadership is universal, but management isn't, in the sense that when I say leadership, it's about creating a shared vision that everyone buys into, and an understanding of why that vision is important to us all. That is leadership to me. But management is the style in which you work with people, or the structure in which you create teams. In London, it's definitely more cutthroat. It's a lot more blunt. In Canada, you can't be as blunt as that. You have to give feedback in a direct enough way, but you've also got to be slightly more careful with the way that you give that feedback to not knock someone's confidence or to think. Whereas in the UK, we're slightly more thick-skinned, maybe because we have this sarcasm as part of our humor. So there is a lot of banter that happens between us. So I think there is that kind of slightly thicker skin. In Dubai, it's slightly different, because actually, if you look at the cultural makeup of the UAE, I believe it's something like 11% is the locals, so Emiratis, and the rest are expats. So you have people from all the way around the world. The differences being here in the UAE compared to London and Canada, which are also very multicultural, is that there are most of the people that are here, they've been here for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, but they're not necessarily born here in terms of people that you mix with. So from a cultural standpoint, the way in which they do business, the way in which they communicate, and also in terms of language, is very different. Because you could be dealing with somebody that a few years ago was living on the other side of the world, right? It's not like, whereas in London and Toronto, yes, it's very diverse, but there's a lot of British born or Canadian born. And so the cultural normalities of doing business is similar. And so the way in which you deal with clients and you also manage teams also has to adapt. So for me, kind of touching on that first point I mentioned, which is probably a good soundbite, is leadership is universal, but management isn't. And if you can't adapt to those different markets, then it's never going to work. And it goes back to that whole thing that I mentioned about one of the benefits that have come about of going to these different markets is actually understanding how to deal with people in a different way. And it's helped me to adapt, because maybe if you had asked me in London what I thought, I might have had a lot of courage in terms of what I said would be right. But actually, when I went into Canada, I realized that my approach wasn't working. I was way too direct. And in Canada, they don't like that.
You have to adapt.
Yeah, you have to adapt, and you have to make them think, whether it's a client or whether it's a staff member, that what I'm telling them is almost their idea. and that's really the difference. So definitely I would say, when you're building teams, it's really important to have that clear vision and an alignment as to how you're going to achieve that. But you have to adapt your management skills, because it's very different. And not just your management skills, like you've got internal stakeholders, and then you've got external stakeholders, which are your customers. And the way you deal with them has to be different.
Yeah, that's a deep dive on people. Psychology is big. I mean, any successful corporate person, entrepreneur, is inevitably has a PhD in psychology 100%. Indirectly.
100%. Listen, I think the more senior you get, sometimes it feels like you're the more problems you're dealing with, and that's what happens in the end of the day. You've got to deal with different people, different personalities. Say problems, sometimes yes. Challenges is probably a better word. But like ultimately, I think probably one of the biggest strengths that I've had is probably the adaptability, and I think moving countries have really helped me with that. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
So you see yourself staying in Dubai for a long time?
Listen, I always say you can never say never to anything. I'm really enjoying my time in Dubai. I think the upside is huge here. I see myself building a life out here, but no one knows how long that's going to be. No one even you always say like even tomorrow is not promised, right? Like I cannot look in the future and say, oh, it's going to be this amount of time. I'd like to hope so, but I also know that I'm lucky enough to be from some other world-class cities in terms of London. So there are many options. But so far, yeah, loving life in Dubai. It's great lifestyle, great people. Just loving it. And I think, like I said, the upside here is massive. So, and I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see the boom that's happening here.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And being a part of it's massive. Yeah, definitely. Have you looked into investing out here into the property, into the markets?
Yeah, I actually have. So it's funny. So I've got a good friend now who lives close to me, and he's in the kind of real estate game, and I've been speaking to him about different properties, different developments, and right now I'm still fairly new into my journey in the UAE. So it's about me understanding, like what I think is the best development to invest in. I think that for me, because I've got the young family, I would probably like to get a place for myself first and foremost, with time, maybe before looking at actual property investment. So of course in Dubai is the kind of thing where you buy off plan, and by the time it's ready, it's worth more than what you originally paid for it. So that becomes an investment to an extent, but it's for if you decide to buy a house as a home, it's only an investment when you sell, right? And so I think for me, what I would like to do is start to slowly put down some roots and see if I do have a property here. One, of course, you want it to be a good investment and you want that asset to appreciate in time. But actually, I just want what's best for my family, and I want us to be comfortable and happy. And I think the more you're happy, then the longer your tenure is going to be in a place, right? And actually, it's kind of like a funny story, but when I first moved to Canada, what I will say is homesickness is real. It is a real thing. When I first moved to Canada, the first year, especially the first 6 months, I found really, really tough. Really, really tough. I missed home, but I was never going to be somebody that was going to quit and go back. I had a job to do, and I knew I was going to stick it out. By the time I left, and we were talking about it before, like I loved it. Like I'm Toronto's biggest fan. I loved it, and it's the same for Dubai. So Dubai, I've been here for about 7 months now. So again, not a huge amount of time. Again, the first few months are always tough. Like you can appreciate, you gotta do all the visas. You gotta find a place to stay, opening bank accounts. It's so admin heavy, and it takes a while for you to settle in, but I definitely would say that once you get most of that life admin out of the way, you can start really enjoying it for what it is. And it's a natural thing to do. You will always compare to other countries that you've lived in. Oh, Toronto, I would be doing this, or Toronto was like this, or London was like this, or London was like that. But you can't do that. You've got to take it for what it is. And you've also got to compare it against the time frame that you've been there. So at the beginning, I was actually homesick for Toronto, not for London. And that surprised me. It really did. And but what I realized actually is like, it's actually not fair to put a direct comparison, because if I compared Toronto's year one, or say 6 months, to Dubai's first 6 months, I've actually enjoyed Dubai more than the first 6 months of Dubai more than I enjoyed the first 6 months of Toronto. So I think that's a good sign. So hopefully it means that at the end of it, I really love it. But I remember saying to my now wife, that actually in that first year of Toronto, I was like, man, like I really hope when I go to the airport to leave this city one day, I'm really sad. That's what my hope is, because if I'm really sad when I'm leaving, it means I had a really good time. And it means it meant something to me. And actually, when I left, I was very, very sad.
It's a good way to test the theory of you always want what you can't have, right?
Yeah. And actually, like, and again, like, if you want to stop and ask me different questions, feel free to, because I'm just like really on a roll right now.
No, it's all good. I'm listening.
Yeah, but I am literally inundated with people contacting me on my LinkedIn. That is Zoheb Zain Perendeta. Feel free to follow me on that. And it's people from London. I've had people from the US, from Canada. I've had messages from people within Africa, South Asia. I've had people in Hong Kong message me and ask me, like, what's it like to move to Dubai? I really want to move here. I really want to live here. And the first thing I always say to people is that, especially people from London and Toronto, the grass isn't always greener. It's drier, as you know, out here. It's hot. The grass is a bit drier.
It's sunny.
But it's not always greener, right? And I think that moving abroad isn't for everyone. You know, like, it goes back to that story or anecdote I told you earlier on about when I spoke to people. There was always a yeah, but. There's always a yeah, but. Moving abroad is really tough and it's really scary. You are leaving everything that you know and everyone that you hold close to you. You are deciding to step away from that. And people might think, yeah, oh, it's not so bad. You know, I only see my relatives, you know, a couple of times a month. But when you only get to see them a couple of times a year, that is a sacrifice you make. So you have to have a real reason as to why you want to do that. If your reason is just solely, I just want to change, I'm telling you now, you'll be running back, because what you think you were running away from or you were bored of, you realize how much you love it. Walking through London, walking through Hampstead, Crouch End, those very kind of green, leafy village types, and grabbing a coffee in the autumn when it gets slightly colder and you've got a light jacket on. Like, I miss those elements. I miss those things.